The X-Men have a long and storied history in Marvel Comics, and in 2019, Marvel had writer Jonathan Hickman come in and do sort of a soft reboot of the X-Men franchise. He did this with two 6-issue miniseries called The House of X and Powers of X, or Powers of 10, depending on where you stand on that. And after that, there was a handful of series that have come out since then called The Dawn of X. Now, in the House of X and Powers of X series, we learn that longtime friend and ally of the mutants, Moira McTaggart, is in fact a mutant herself. She has the power to reincarnate, but she does have limits to her powers as well. We also learn throughout this series about her past lives and the things that she has done, most notably in her 6th life, 7th, 8th, and 9th life, as we are now in her 10th life in the series that have come out after the House of X and Powers of X, commonly known as the Dawn of X. And in this new series called Cracking Krakoa, Deciphering the Dawn of X, we are going to go through and break down a lot of the things that Jonathan Hickman laid down for us in the House of X and Powers of X series, and the things that we have learned through the Dawn of X. Thank you all so much for being here. If you want to hear more of this content, make sure that you're subscribed and click that little bell so you get notifications and all of that good stuff. And let's get here into this first episode. What's up, everybody? Trinity here, and welcome back to 2nd Street. And today on Cracking Krakoa, Deciphering the Dawn of X. No, I'm not going to say that every single time. We are talking about types of societies. And there are 3 types of societies that we are going to be talking about today. And those are Planetary, Galactic, and Universal. Now, first, we're going to get a brief description of what a species intelligence is here before we learn about what each one of those are. Starting off here with these types of societies: Planetary. Galactic scale of interstellar societies based on measurements of species intelligence, or SI. A species intelligence of 1 is representative of the thinking power of a single mature being possessing average intellectual abilities. While there are wild fluctuations between species at the machine state, take, for example, the disparity between the intellectual prowess of a base Cree and Skrull. Once the species intelligence reach the intelligence level, most variations even out. Now, I do think this is a little bit of good information here, especially the part where they're saying that it's a single mature being possessing average intellectual abilities. So let's go ahead and get here into our species intelligence 1 machine. A single machine mind that is a direct copy of an existing sentient mind, or represents the equivalent thinking power of a single sentient mind of a species. So to me, this sounds like you could actually have like maybe a backup of your mind that you could have put into a computer program, or like a machine, almost like a hard drive, or like an SD card or something. Then we move on to SI-10, Hive, a collective of individual machines with the unified thinking power of up to 10 machines. While there are hives composed of more than 10 machines, regardless of which species they are based on, ones with more than 10 machines working as a collective begin to fracture and deteriorate as the repressed individuality of each machine overwhelms the hive. Now, I think this is something important because this is something we're dealing with a lot throughout this whole series in the House of X and Powers of X, especially if we look at, say, the Quiet Council of Krakoa and everything that mutants have to deal with there, but we'll get into that as we learn more throughout this series. Also note, unlike intelligences, the next one, hives are mature individual intellects working together that were not created to naturally reach a species intelligence beyond their machine state. So they're not really naturally meant to be working in a hive mind or beyond that particular machine state. Now, moving on into species intelligence 100 through 10,000, this is intelligence. And intelligence is a thinking machine created to be an amalgam of at least 100 machines acting in harmony toward a collective goal. Note, the Supremer, the Cree Supreme Intelligence, is an amalgam of direct copies of Cree philosophers and thinkers that were merged into a single intellect. While basing an intelligence on pre-existing beings is a common occurrence at this level of society, it becomes less common the further up the galactic scale. So basically here, once you get beyond an intelligence, you don't really get many times where you're going to have multiple intelligences or hives or anything coming together to get beyond an intelligence level and going on into galactic scale. Now this takes us into our second type of society, and this is galactic. Here we're starting off with a species intelligence level of 10,000, and this is a technarch. A technarch is an artificial collective intelligence manufactured by a phalanx that was created to classify, order, and assimilate other existing societies. This repurposing of societies is a technarch's sole purpose. A technarch exists as a singular node, often taking the shape of a world, but can be any series of planetary objects or formations called the Kvitch. Or is that Kitch? I don't know. We're going to go with Kitch. Each Kitch is controlled by an alpha intelligence called a Magus. Each technarch believes it is the only technarch in existence. Technarch are invisible to other technarch. Now, I think this is something that's interesting here with the technarchs, as it says they were manufactured by the Phalanx. They are a singular node, but not only that, is these technarchs are basically there to classify, order, and assimilate these societies. So if there's a technarch around, it's for a reason, and they are basically working at the behest of the Phalanx. But let's go ahead and get here into species intelligence 100,000, world mind. A world mind is a celestial object, commonly a planet, that has been wholly converted into a singular intellect. These intellects possess a godlike intelligence and act on a timeline of millennia. On the Kardashev scale, a world mind represents a type 2 civilization. Now, I think this is something important that they mention, that this is a type 2 civilization, the world mind, and also that these are commonly a planet that have been converted into a singular intellect. Now, let's go ahead and get into species intelligence 1 million. This is a phalanx. A phalanx is an interstellar society that operates on a galactic scale and represents an intellect that has total control of a host galaxy. At this level of society, an intellect exists only to expand its own intelligence by consuming lesser societies and to control the energy needs that expansion demands. If a phalanx encounters a society that is worth consuming by adding to its intelligence needs, then ascension occurs. If a phalanx encounters a society that is not worth adding to its collective, then it will seed that society with a techno-organic virus. This virus will eventually produce a bauble spire that will summon a technarch to repurpose that societal waste from the universe. Note: technarchs do not know that they were manufactured to serve the phalanx cause. On the Kardashev scale, a phalanx represents a type 3 civilization. Now, I think these are very important things to keep in mind. Now, there are people, actually, things that we know of in the universe, in the X-Men universe, that are Technarchs, that are World Minds, and that are Phalanx. Now, this all of this is kind of set up where we see these are all kind of on a smaller scale before we get here into the universal types of societies. Now, the universal types of societies start off with a species intelligence of 10 million, and this first one is known as a Titan. A Titan is an interstellar society that has become so advanced that the density of its unified intelligence has collapsed space-time into a singularity. All universal societies exist in partially atemporal space, but unlike strongholds or dominions, Titans are singular, hermetic intellect, isolationists, and not a collective or a group. Like all universal societies on the Kardashev scale, a Titan represents a type O civilization. The next species intelligence we have is 100 million, known as a stronghold. A stronghold is a small network of connected titans, normally 5 or fewer, typically confined to a galactic cluster or a dense collection of stacked galaxies. Unlike titans, strongholds are not lone wolf societies that seek to avoid conflict with other universal societies. Strongholds are warring factions seeking to actively destroy or absorb other strongholds in order to achieve dominion status, and often challenge the sovereignty of dominions themselves. If machines have religions, expansion and conquest are the altar at which strongholds worship. This is some very interesting stuff there. And that takes us on to species intelligence of undefined, and this is our last one, known as a dominion. A dominion is a collective of 10 or more titans acting in unison to control a particular sector or sectors of space in both area and epochs of time. And while the minimum number of titans needing to compose a dominion is 10, the average number of titans in a dominion is much higher than that. For example, the local dominion controlling the sector including Earth, space, is a collective numbering 112 titans. It's worth noting that in terms of intellect and power, a dominion is not colloquially, I hope I pronounced that right, godlike, but categorically godlike, and indistinguishable from any and all mythic or religious comparisons. Note, beyond universal abstracts, under which dominions are seen as naturally occurring, the only primal threats that a dominion fears are the World Eater, Galactic, and the singular universal manifestation of life, the Phoenix. Now, this is all of the types of societies that Jonathan Hickman laid out here in the House of X and Powers of X, and I think it's very interesting, and that's why I made this the first episode here in this Krakoa series, is because I think these things are very important in this whole series, as we see that there are many types of societies out there. Each one of them seems to be working on dominating the next one, and at some point through all of these we see that each one is working to sort of ascend itself from a machine state to a hive state, to an intelligent state, from a technarch to a world mind, from a world mind to a phalanx. We see a lot of these different societies coming together to basically beat one another out. And it seems like what we mostly deal with is mutants and X-Men throughout all of these books and throughout the history of the X-Men, it seems like here we're getting a little bit more than that, as each one is trying to fight for that domination, which is something that has continually happened throughout all of time with the X-Men and things like that, where, you know, because they're feared, humans don't like them, so, you know, they try to get rid of them. The mutants just want to be left alone, but we see that they can't, and, you know, the history has kind of proven that they can't get along. And so we see each one of these kind of fighting for this domination. And the interesting thing here is, throughout the House of X and Powers of X, especially in the Powers of X series, we learn about different ones of these types of societies and different people in them, and sort of the things that they're going through as each one of them ascends into the next one. As we see in the Powers of X series, we actually see that the society is actually getting ready to be absorbed by the Phalanx. So I think that's why I wanted to cover the types of societies here in this first video. And I want to know from you, what types of societies do you know out there in the X-Men universe? I know there are all kinds of them out there. Like I said, throughout the series, we've seen obviously the mutants, the humans, you know, we've got the Cree, we've got the Skrull, we've got all kinds, we've had the Kotati coming in, and we see just all different types of societies coming together and fighting for this dominance over in this X-Men world. And it's very interesting, these types of societies, as we see that each one, it does seem to be trying to ascend to the next level, and that's kind of what we've seen throughout all of these books. But that's all I have for this video today, folks. That's all we have for these types of societies and things like that. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions or any input you could give to me. I greatly appreciate it. Again, I'm no professional here. I don't know the rich storied history of the X-Men, but I do know that I've really enjoyed the House of X, the Powers of X, and this Dawn of X series and everything that has been going on. And you viewers have been absolutely great in helping fill me in on some of the things that I don't know. Thank you all so much for being here today. You all have a very good day. Make sure that you're subscribed if you like this video. Give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, feel free to give it a thumbs down. It's okay. It's not going to hurt my feelings. But while you're at it, make sure that you share it with a friend and invite them to come hang out with us here on the 2nd Street Marvel. You all have a very good day. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you in the next video. Later.